Good morning, everyone. This is the Traveler. Today, I'm taking you on a quick journey through Vietnamese titles. Those little words like N, G, go back that can make or break a conversation. Our project turns that maze into a set of playful pathways so learners can choose the right title every time. Let's start with why this matters. First, a real-life blooper, then why the problem we are solving.
Thế năm nay bà bao nhiêu tuổi rồi?
Bà là sinh năm 67, năm nay là 53 tuổi. Thế cô Vân, cháu Vân sinh năm bao nhiêu?
Bà là sinh năm 67.
Cháu Vân sinh năm bao nhiêu?
Dạ báo cáo bà là cháu sinh năm 66.
Cháu sinh năm 66.
Cháu sinh năm 66.
A few years ago, an internet celebrity budding blog greeted virtual actress Hong Wen with the word "Zhao," which literally means grandchild. Imagine calling a respected senior kid on camera. Viewers cringed, and the clip went viral. One tiny pronoun flipped the power dynamic, and everyone in the room felt it. That's the social weight of Vietnamese titles. As for the reason why we designed this project, scholars like Lei and Yuan consistently note that the Vietnamese honorifics holds a later acquired and a material poor area of pragmatics. The system is dense and is underrepresented in teaching resources. Without targeted training, learners continue to sound either overly intimidated or inappropriately distant, undermining the social rapport. Getting titles right would pay off in 5 areas. First, you can show the real difference to elders, teachers, clients, and both sides would know who's older, who's host. And correct titles would build trust in business, healthcare, and other areas. You also don't want awkward pauses in neighbors' chat, and students would dare to speak Vietnamese instead of hiding behind other languages. However, if we fail, the opposite happens: rudeness, status confusion, lost skills, and the worst, silence. So our project gave learners an interactive story-based toolkit to practice titles in context with instant feedback before they face the real world. Now we have seen the problem and its impact. Let's look at how our project meets the credible principles and what the interactive experience actually looks like. First, our story, dialogue, and artwork set in a present-day Vietnamese town. Learners practice titles they will actually need in cafes, family dinners, and business meetings, not in some abstract drills. Second, the research tells us address term errors linger the longest for second language learners, and the employers keep asking university for soft skills training. So we're fixing a real customer to workplace gap. This wasn't built in isolation. We could design with Vietnamese teachers and students and the professionals who will use this tool. The community helped write and test everything. The native reviewers checked every key term, stone word, and particles. The art shows recognizable Vietnamese street architecture, lanterns, and soft signs. We blend politeness theory, game-based branching, and positive discourse analysis so the material works for learners worldwide, not just some Western classrooms. The toolkit is free and open source, but honorific means fewer misunderstandings for tour guides, clinic staff, or some normal neighborhood interactions. This is the first open source twin game focused on Vietnamese social titles. We hope it could become a model for other town practical language can copy. Finally, ethical. Content was reviewed by a cultural sensitivity panel with no stereotyping, so that we could keep the local voices stay in local hands. The next part is the materials we designed. This slide shows the core material set that powers the project. At the center, you see the twin flow chart. 8 main passages, P1 through P8, each representing a story chapter. The arrows are the learner's correct paths and the wrong passes. The gray branches lead to wrong answer pages, where the student receives an instant explanation and a bike link. Let's test from chapter 1. For every chapter, we embedded 3 elements: watercolor illustration, full screen art that establishes settings and keeps engagement high, blank field dialogue, one line with the pronoun removed, forcing the learner to choose a title in context. The third element is the feedback page. If the learner picks the wrong form, they will pop up a teaching page tied to the 4 social variables from Learn's framework. If they made the right choice, they will be able to make to the next chapter with the same set. And then finally, the entire package is exported as a single HTML file. Teachers can share it via USB or email for offline or online use. In short, this material. Why do we believe this story-based resource is a strong piece of teaching material? First, the context is authentic. Everything, the midnight emergency call, the neighbor chat, the police statement, and the family's apology mirrors real situations where a learner must pick Vietnamese titles on the spot. And second, it is highly motivating. The mystery plot pulls learners forward. If they want the next clue, they have to choose the right title. So attention stays high compared with traditional drills. And third, the game gives immediate feedback. One wrong click triggers a 40-word pop-up and names the social rule, the age, the status, the kinships, and shows a repair line. Learners retry instantly, which research shows prevents faciled errors. Finally, the resource is lightweight and open. All resources are exported as a single HTML file. It runs offline, drops easily into any LMS, and teachers can edit or extend it at no cost. In short, the material turns an abstract pronoun chart into a live feedback-rich experience that learners can practice anywhere, making it both practical and teacher-friendly. To anchor our toolkit in solid theory, we draw on 3 intersecting bodies of scholarship. International pragmatics give us a big picture. Brown and Levenson's classic Platonist model reminds us that every Vietnamese pronoun choice is a face-threatening act. So our game must show learners exactly whose face they endanger when they pick the wrong form. Elon's ethnography adds precision, showing that a single term includes age, kinship, power, and solidarity. That is why its character in the story carries a 4-factor grid, and the engine tells the player which dimension, age, or stature, for instance, is just violated. Yuan study proves that honorific errors appears even in advanced classrooms unless feedback is immediate and contextual. So our train prototype forces a try, explain, and retry loop before the story can move on. The Vietnamese lecturer then fine-tunes these ideas. Yuan Wanjian maps 4 Platonist shades: formal, neutral, intimate, and rude. So we tag every learner's choice with that scale and flag whether they have slipped it into a rogue register. Jinti Mai demonstrates that Hanoi rank perceived age above occupational status. This gave me an idea for future plan. We should investigate the differences in titles between Nelson dialect and Southern dialect. T. Tui Zhang's study inspired our leveling up mechanics that let an NPC invite the player to switch from Doigo to MA. Finally, Jin Shun Tui's business email corpus reveals that king titles boost warmth. but also can reduce perceived professionalism. This could be used for future business meeting lessons. The third layer comes from Chinese journals. 何志平 restates Jane's four-tier scale and documents exactly how often learners misuse these titles, reinforcing our decision to spell out the tier in every feedback bubble. Chen Yunxia calculated that typical textbook present only 6 pronouns while daily life needs more than 20. I plan to introduce its 22 in high-level materials. Wu Hongxia's classroom study reports a 45% misselection rate after a full academic year, reveal the emergent need for teaching materials in this area. In short, every mechanic from Rapport bars to dialect toggles travels straight from peer-reviewed insight to playable design, turning dense social linguistics into an interactive, learner-friendly experience. The next part is positive discourse analysis. Positive discourse analysis asks, which public resources already model respectful address and solidarity? Then how can we amplify them? We began with 2 YouTube channels, Learn Vietnamese with Anh. This channel always greets viewers using the correct kin title. Các bạn for peers, Go or Ju for the elders. Jenny from Ding Viet early called herself Ji Jenny, lowering her status to younger learners. So in our story, players would switch from Doi On to warmer and Ji when facing different NPCs, mirroring Jenny's shift. The VLS cursor mode shows an ideal roleplay before analysis. Each of our chapters now opens with a cutscene of NPCs using the right titles. Then we ask the learner to fill the blank on a replay. 2 mainstream textbooks, Elementary Vietnamese and Colloquial Vietnamese. They color code pronouns and insert cultural note. This could provide valuable tips for future learning website design. A VLS blog reframes the much criticized habit of asking age as a respect move. This could inspire us to add communication skills in Vietnamese title teaching website. And finally, Duolingo shows you with XP for each learning chapter, so we can introduce skills in other visual story games. In short, we observe a lot of design elements from other learning websites, apps, language learning channels, and textbooks for our project design and future plan. This project moves through 6 steps. The first step is need analysis. I reviewed my own Vietnamese learning experience in China and in Vietnam. I discussed with my classmates and teachers in Vietnamese department. I scanned the research and used critical discourse analysis and positive discourse analysis to pinpoint an obvious guide, which is students really get to practice address term in realistic settings. The second step was storyboarding. I mapped an 8-chapter mystery, built scene list, and filled a character sheet for every role, age, kin, power, intimacy, all taken from Learn's framework. The third step is twin prototyping. I produced a clickable prototype with blank field slots for pronouns and branching wrong answer pages. The writing diagram you see at the bottom. The fourth step was testing. Vietnamese teachers and classmates played through, marking typos, dialect shapes, and pacing issues. Their feedback drove revisions. The next step was coding. I optimized the graphics, added hover glosses, explicit text, and exported a single HTML file ready to run offline. The final step was planning future development. The next term will be included in public beta date, add central dialect voiceovers, and publish a teacher dashboard so the toolkit keeps evolving with the community. So, how did we move this from prototype into a real classroom? I tested the interactive story with 10 first-year Vietnamese major students at my university. We walked through chapter 1 to 3 as a 1-hour lab task. We completed a short pre- and post test on address term selection. Before using the game, the class averaged 70% accuracy on a 20-attempt teen title quiz. After just 3 chapters, roughly 45 minutes of interactive play, the same student jumped to 90%. The average learner needed 1.6 retries for blank on chapter 1 and only 0.7 retries by chapter 3, which suggests the feedback loop is working. Qualitatively, students said they also learned different applicable circumstances for the same titles. For example, before they only know the word girl could be used to call female teachers, and now they know this title could be used to call all middle-aged females older than them. The feedback we got from teachers is the story was too complex for beginners, so we adjusted a little bit. And then I also got feedback, hope we have different level story for different level students. These early numbers are small scale, but they tell us the two can close a 20 percentage point accuracy gap in a single session, and we hope to conduct wider pre-pulse. These earlier numbers are small scale, but they tell us the two can close a 20 percentage point accuracy gap in a single session, and we hope to conduct wider pre-post tests with larger sample size in the future. Looking ahead, our roadmap has 3 strands. First, we will release level-specific story packs. Event beginners get salmon goes to the market. Simple titles like go, drew, in. For B1 learners, we have a startup pitch with higher rank forms like gravy and bar. Second, I plan to partner with university staff and students to co-develop a public learning portal. The site will host all the stories, quizzes, and the analysis, and the teachers can upload their own branches, so the project grows with the community, not just with me. Third, inspired by Platonus in Modern Vietnamese, a social linguistic study of Hanoi speech community, we will run a systemic study on Northern versus Southern address term strategies to capture real usage data. Those findings will feed straight back into the portal as an interactive address term map and refine the game's dialect taggles. Together, these steps keeps the material fresh, locally owned, and suitable across provinces, levels, and regions.